Fine. It's hard for me to take notes as I'm saying things as well. Fine. Let's start with attendance. Yes. According to the screen.
Yeah, let me just get the sharing on the screen. Okay, so yes, attendance is the first one. I take it everyone's reading the conflict of interest and antitrust statements because multiple competitors are working here on the board. So please go ahead with attendance.
All right, Glenn.
Yeah.
Hang on, so it's hard for me to write this down too. Apologies. Sorry, Glenn. Yes. Martin.
Yes.
Juven.
Yes.
Bill.
Here.
And I am here as well. As far as the guests go, we have Andrew, Shelby, Lauren, Kelly is here. Kelly is here. Lisa, Dawn, Harold, and Vikrant. Did I miss anybody?
No.
Excellent. We need to approve the minutes.
Yeah, so the minutes are available. Has everyone had a chance to read them?
Yes. I'll motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Let's go through the voting. Going a bit slower as I'm also writing this down. Right. Again, according to my screen, Glenn.
Yep.
Martin,
Abstain. I wasn't there.
did you read them?
Yes, but I don't know how will it there.
Fine. Juven,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and for me, that's yes. Fine. Passes 4-0. Moving on.
Okay, so let me just close that off. There was a number of pre-reading materials, including the Foundation Board summary, which I'll go through now, and then we'll get Shelby to do the financial narrative and package, and then we'll get on to the actual discussion items. Before we go there, can we just discuss the agenda? We don't have anyone here, as far as I'm aware, to discuss the Outreach Committee Ambassador Program. Could we please have a show of hands that we can table this for the next meeting, which will be at the AppSec USA?
Indeed, we actually need to take a vote on that.
I don't think you need to take a vote, just a general agreement that we can table it.
To change the announced agenda, actually do need to.
Okay, then.
Affirmative 2/3 vote to change the motions. So I will second that. Why did I lose my? Sorry, Glenn, I took your thumb up as motioning it. I'll second that.
I can second it.
Very good. Let's take the vote. Glenn?
Yeah.
Martin?
Yeah.
Juven?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And for me as well. Tabled.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's get into the reports. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we are in the process of updating our branding to match the color schemes of the new Your Membership website. There's minor changes, but to do this, we also have had a long-standing need to have a simpler branding guidelines on how to actually apply our logos and where you can do so. This is in a PDF at the moment, but once we've actually got all of the elements in place, I'm waiting for a Word document to come in. I do actually have a PowerPoint presentation slide deck, which is around here somewhere. It's coming up. I'll just show it to you. So this is the new deck. It needs to be a little bit better than it is at the moment. It doesn't have any master styles. So I'm going to work with the gentleman who created them, because the master styles are the way that you get existing templates up to date without much change. So we've got the actual design, but fundamentally the idea is that the slideshow, if I just simply go from beginning, it's a lot cleaner. It has our branding in a reasonable spot. You can get more content onto a page if you want. You don't have to. It's a lot more graphical for those people who want to have a more graphical slide deck. And this is the sort of slides that we're looking for in the future. It's just simply something that has a consistent look and feel with our branding, nice and easy, nice and light, with different alternatives available for folks. And so I do think this is going to be a very good update, but it is not done just yet. The main thing that we're going to be waiting upon is the Word document, and to make our branding much easier. There is an element with trademarks that you use it or lose it. I don't think there's any doubt with OWASP and the OWASP logo. For example, OWASP with the logo like this is a trademark, and we have to use it in this way. It has to have space around it for the US. Other areas don't require that space to be around it. And it's got a couple of free fonts that people can get their hands on very easily, unlike our previous set. They look a lot more professional. You can just get these from Google Fonts and download them and put them on your computer. This is the new color scheme that's also in your membership. So that's why we actually did this exercise in total, is just simply to make sure that all of our materials start looking like each other and our website looks like each other. And essentially that's coming up. So that's underway. Bylaws, we are finishing up. I have a meeting tomorrow morning to discuss the final draft with the lawyer. He's going to give us a motion that will be required to be passed. We will get that underway pretty much as soon as the election is finished. There's no reason to delay it any further, basically. I have put up on the GitHub various policies. So if we go to GitHub OWASP www policy, if you go to pull requests, you'll see them, the ones that are actually linked inside this slide deck and also in the notes as pre-reading material. The major one is the new regional chapter policy. I am trying to get some people to comment on it through this mechanism. This is what the chapter committee and Sam and Avi and Lisa and myself have been working on for some time. This is just the text in that format. And you can see the changes from the previous policy for those who are interested in it. But I also have given a PDF of this document so that's nice and clean. So let me just get rid of that. Oopsie daisy. Okay. Okay, we're back. Multi-desktops, lovely. There is a PDF available in Google Groups for those people who are interested in seeing a version that's easier to read. I don't think this is going to be very controversial because of the amount of consulting the chapter committee has done and the amount of work that Avi, Sam, Lisa and myself have put into getting the document mostly up to scratch. The biggest single change will be the German stammatures. They will, for all intents and purposes, be city chapters. We've already had agreement to convert OWASP Frankfurt into a city chapter that will then be part of the regional OWASP Germany chapter. And so that will work with your membership. So fundamentally, that's up now. I've got a number of other policies that are also up that you can have a look at. We want to basically update our bylaws for the election. We want to get our membership policy to reflect the new bylaws. There's a bunch of settings such as grace periods and whatnot that don't belong in the bylaws. And if we want to minimize the total number of amendments of the bylaws, we put them into policies. So our previous settings, such as the 7-day grace period, they are reflected in the policy. Now, that might be a good time to bring up something that's operational, but probably from a board oversight. We have discovered that one of the board candidates let his membership lapse for 45 days. And unfortunately, our system, once he renewed, just showed continuous membership again. We only discovered this now. The person is not leading the election, and so it won't change the result. However, at the same time, Dawn, could you just describe what has happened and have you notified the person?
Well, I was going to notify him after the meeting. So basically what happens, because he has a complimentary membership, you cannot renew to that day after. So I guess he waited, but he never did it. But when it did renew, it took it in copper and put it as the same start date instead of when he really renewed. But that being said, we don't know if he's a front runner or not, because there's no way to see the tallies at all.
Okay.
So there's no way to see that. Even me as an admin and you as an admin, no one could see the results, what the status is of the votes.
Okay.
I will send him an email today to inform. I went over it with Harold this morning, took all the screenshots to inform him why this, why he, I guess, disqualified from it. We did talk about, me and Harold, and would talk with you later on after the election, is that maybe we make the date the time the election starts, so there's never a gray area, because complimentary you cannot renew till the day it ends or the day after. But also, again, if you're voting on, which everyone talked about, that you have to be a paid member to vote, which is not in place, that this will not happen. So what I'll do is you'll just take the top people, and if he falls into one of the top, it just gets disqualified and you go to the next person.
Yeah. So, board, are there any questions on this? I'll take it as no. If you do have any concerns, please write me or make a meeting with me later. Okay, the other one that's not related to the bylaws is just normalizing our admin overhead to be 15% across the board. And with that, we have some operations. We have scheduled a staff summit for the early part of next year. It's going to be 2 days in Florida. It is a working trip. It is not a pleasure trip. It's just that we've got 2 of our staff in Florida, so it just turned out to be cheaper to hold it in Florida than any other place. Obviously, the vote is done. All of the staff now have the credit cards. So for the first time in a long time, we are now set up properly to have our staff travel. And with that, I need to update this to not be Tom Pappas. Shelby, I am so sorry.
No problem.
So just very briefly, again, the pre-reading material has it in graphical format for you. You are more than welcome to ask questions around these graphs. This gives you an idea that our AR is well under control, even though the amount has crept up. The amount of money that we have on hand is also crept up. So it's actually much easier to identify trends. And just because AR is creeping up is not a bad thing. It means it's money that we're due to collect. So if you are interested, I'll, with that, pass it over to Shelby.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks for taking the time to meet today. I'm also looking forward to next month when we'll all be able to meet in person. So today I'm going over the financial position as of September 30th, 2022. I put together the financial narrative that's historically prepared, and I'm not going to read this word for word, but I'll go over the highlights. I'll start with the reminder that the financials only consider the US activity. So earned revenue year to date is approximately 1.2 million, about 9,000 less than our budget. I do want to plug here that the budget includes 100,000 of expected grant revenue and 90,000 of expected grant expenses that have yet to incur. So the metrics I'm going to share going forward will be without those figures in mind. So overall, we are 91,000 ahead of budget in revenue. To break it down further, we have corporate membership revenue at 417,000, roughly 230,000 ahead of our budget. Individual membership revenue is at 216,000, and this is slightly below our budget of 225,000. Donations are at 121,000, so not taking any of those grant numbers into account, we are 54,000 ahead of budget here. And then lastly, event income of 449,000 is 153,000 under budget. The largest driver here is overestimating our Asia Pacific revenue. We budgeted to receive 200,000 in sponsorships and 25,000 in registrations. In actuality, we received 46,000 in sponsorships and 11,000 in registrations. Okay, going down a bit. Oh, you have a question, Avi?
Yeah, a question about the registration for APAC. It was eventually free. How was there any profit from registrations? It was supposed to have been free registration.
Training.
Of course. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your help on that. Okay, so going into expenses, year to date, we're at approximately 1.1 million compared to a budget expecting 1.2 million in expenses. To break it down individually by category, project expenses are 13,000 under budget, events are 16,000 under budget, marketing and G&A are approximately 43,000 under budget, and then all other categories were collective 3,000 under budget. We did spend a little bit more in legal, and so that you will see G&A was over budget by about 21,000. Okay, so with the above noted, net income shakes out to about $144,000. Our budget approved a loss of 20,000, so this is well above expectations. For our operational reserve, I'm going to jump to the balance sheet here. So in cash, we have approximately 2.1 million, which is 192,000 more than last month and 947,000 more than last year. So you'll see that's a 79% increase year over year, which in itself, that's a huge accomplishment. If you remove our accounts payable of 90,000 and our restricted project funds of 68,000, you'll have approximately 1.9 million to cover your operating costs. That puts you at 16.3 months of cash reserves for operating. And then if you factor in all expenses, it's going to go down a little bit to 11 months of cash reserves. Just a couple other items to note. You have about 312,000 sitting in deferred corporate membership and sponsorship. That is no cash obligation there. You just have a timing obligation to be able to recognize that revenue. AppSec US, we all know is going to happen next month. So once that does, we'll recognize this revenue. You can see that it's a large balance. So we need to keep in mind that it's a significant portion of our revenue, and we want to keep our expenses down for the events to have the best net benefit possible. And the last thing I'll note, which Andrew already touched on a little bit, accounts receivable is at $227,000. And of that, only 8% is over 60 days past due. So that's really good. Like you said, more money to come in.
So with the AppSec USA, the San Francisco event, we also have some big bills, but we've been paying them down over since 2020. So we've actually recognized some of those bigger bills in previous years. And so we'll have a higher profit this year than we would otherwise in a normal year, just because of the timing. But fundamentally, that's our ticket to recovery in 2023.
Perfect. Thank you for noting that also. Let me know if there's any other questions. I'd be happy to help with. All right. If not, that's all for me. Let me stop sharing and we can go forward.
Andrew, is this?
I think you're muted.
Sorry, was that a comment towards me because I was talking?
Andrew's still muted.
Yeah, that's me. We have Giving Tuesday coming up. And so for Giving Tuesday, there is some board training that's coming up. I'd appreciate if people who are going to remain on the board can come to that training. I've invited the candidates, all of them, with the expectations that the ones who aren't successful can also do it. The reality is that Giving Tuesday is November 29, and we're trying to organise things around flagship projects and in particular committee initiatives such as scholarship or diversity funds, so that essentially we can start fundraising properly. So this is what's the work has been done with Teresa Huff. We are starting to get to a place where we can do grants. So part of the training that's coming up is actually how to approach grants and be successful at applying for them. They do take time to get, I won't lie. 6 months is a pretty average time to get a grant of any substantial amount. And to do so, you need to have a fleshed out idea of what you're going to deliver. So, but in the meantime, we're going to be doing peer-to-peer, like crowdfunding type of donations for Giving Tuesday. So if anybody's got flagship projects or a initiative that they'd like to see funded, such as a diversity scholarship for AppSec Cali, or sorry, not AppSec Cali, but AppSec Dublin or AppSec DC next year, please do bring that up and we can get that started to be fundraised. And that's all I had.
You were about to do an update on chapters, membership, projects? Let's do that. And events as well.
Okay. So membership, the biggest single change this month, and you'll see that as a dip, is that we actually have a tool that allows you to work out what the member numbers are. And all of the numbers that have been presented in these green bars up until this month have been using copper. Copper is not the source of truth. It is the source of truth, but it's not the source of truth. So Harold has actually rewritten the tool in Go, and now it gets its data from Stripe, which, although it's not a CRM, is actually accurate. And so this is the actual number of members that we have today. And so the reality is that I'll be reporting the more accurate numbers going forward. It is not a significant dip, but it is a dip nonetheless. I'd rather have the real numbers there for you. Unfortunately, because of our tooling, as I said, Stripe is not a CRM. I can't go back and historically look up what these values would be. Otherwise I would. And there's a question. Okay, so Arby's just moving around. Okay, dokie. In terms of chapters, we've had 6 new chapters. We've not created some chapters for some particular reason. It might be due to Lisa, what is the reason why the chapters were not created? Were they just not compliant with policy?
Yeah, they have they're approved, they're set up as a template and they're listed on the needs update. They're not listed active yet and they're just sitting there. I asked the chapter committee if they could reach out to them.
Okay.
But I don't know.
So we've had a rather healthy last 90 days of 332 events in the meetup. And over nearly 6,000 people responded to go to those events. So that's pretty good. Projects and grants, there's always a project status available. Projects obviously are a little bit more up to the project leaders as to what sort of activity is taking place at this time. There is a project summit planned to coincide with Global AppSec San Francisco. We are in the process of doing a project audit report. Hang on, I've got something happening here. Give me one tick while I just pause. What I might do is, could I get Avi to take the discussion on the board funding priorities while I find out what's happening in the background here? I'll come back to my announcement afterwards, after the business.
All right. I'm actually going to reverse the order of that. Work our way from the bottom up because I feel like this discussion should be done after the full update. So we're going to wait till we're done with the full update because I think some of that will feed into this as well. Is that all right with everybody? Any objection? So Andrew, if you could just scroll down to the committee officer elections, we'll start from the bottom of the new business. We're skipping the table, the ambassador discussion about. All right, so we want to discuss the committee officer elections. According to the committee policy, committees, except for with the exclusion of the compliance committee, all committees must hold elections yearly, just like the board, and the same term limits apply, no more than 2 terms, and so on. I don't think most of the committees have been doing this, generally speaking, in the past. Now that we're having the board elections, we need to see how that goes, especially with a couple of committees that have like passed around. What's the word? Castling, smushed. So that might create edge cases as well. Is anybody familiar with the status in the other committees?
Obvious, Dawn. I do know that the DIA committee beforehand, we talked about that. We brought one new person on and they did add another person on because some people stepped away, but they didn't, it just did it amongst the people who were there because the people that get the votes are only the officers, I believe. So.
The people that get to vote are only the officers, but the elections are for anybody that's registered on the committee. Don't show up to the committee meeting. That's not the vote. The vote is in person. So that I think that's fair. Anybody that's there.
And Avi, chapter committee did it when you went to the board.
Right. So last year they did that, right?
Yeah, and well, Vlad's kind of got a pause, obviously, but Kyle has been helping out Haral and Sam without any kind of like electioner type thing.
All right. Okay, so that's good news. I guess Grant is not here to report about the outreach committee. Is anybody else familiar what the outreach and the committee are doing?
We have the meeting tomorrow. That'll be the first meeting since it's combined.
Mhm.
So it would be discussed tomorrow.
Okay, excellent. I don't think I'll be able to attend tomorrow. I have a conflict. I was talking with Zoe about
Mhm.
that. And I basically, I point that out, that needs to be happening. But because it's the first meeting since they merged the committees, she was saying maybe to postpone the elections.
Well, it could be discussed and we'll see what, they'll send you, they should send you minutes of the meeting. So you should, I'll bring it up. And then they could decide what to do.
All right. Okay. Any other issues on this topic? I know that Zoe has been the chair of the WIA committee for 2 terms. But she did express that she's probably not going to continue, that she's gonna step by and let, with the merge committee, it might have been an edge case, but she expressed that she's gonna step aside and let somebody else step in. So I don't think there will be an issue with that. That special case that I mentioned.
But isn't that, if none of these, just quick question, wouldn't that be the same for SAM for chapters and the same for Spiro? So that we have to get people then if it's a term limit?
So, right, so the term limits are the same as for the board, which is a limit of 2 consecutive terms. In other words, 4 years. So the elections
Okay,
can be
so we're
every year.
fine with, yeah,
So-
okay.
So for the committees,
you.
they're allowed to have elections for the whole committee every year, or they're allowed to do every, 2 years per officer, the same as the board. But 4 years is the limit anyway.
So my only point might be that the policy itself apparently did not go through the standard committee review process and a community review process. And if there's anything that needs to be fixed in the policy, this could be one of the policies that's updated this year, just simply to make it operational. If it is difficult for committees to actually organize elections, or they're not necessary, or there's just not enough volunteers to run an election, I think some of the corner cases that are elections shall be held sort of impugns that there will be an election. What happens if there's not enough leadership? I think honestly the policy may need to be revised and then run through a community review process. I'd be very happy to think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Basically, I would just simply suggest that if it's not operational and it's not working for the committees, the board should revisit the committee's policy to make sure that it works for the committees.
All right, that's a fair point. But I'll point out that the policy does cover what happens when there's not enough leadership. Obviously, if there's not enough leadership, elections are irrelevant, but so the committee can't continue to function if there's not enough leadership. We're very explicit about that. I was sure that the committee policy was one of the first ones that went through the full process. It was before my time on the board. So if there's anything specific that you think needs to be changed, please float that up to us and we'll take that into consideration. I didn't see any specific issues.
Okay. I think the main one would be just simply to make sure that it's very clear that individuals should only be on one committee. I'm not sure that the policy itself makes that ultimately very clear.
Explicit, and I find it, I question if anybody has issues with that.
Yeah.
It's very clear and explicit.
Okay. Anyway, look, I'll read the committee policy and suggest any changes I think are necessary. From an operational point of view, it is a little bit difficult. The committees, my major concern with the committees is that they meet regularly, but not much comes out in terms of impact. And so there should be some sort of impact driver that is part of the policy so that people are actually working towards delivering something. The chapter committee is by far the most active and they do the most, and the project committee have been doing good work with the project reviews, but how do we actually drive the impact of projects outside of the organization? How do we actually make sure that chapters are vibrant and things like that? So some sort of metrics or something. I think honestly, the committee's policy creates meetings, but not necessarily outcomes.
I would agree with that. In that context, in the past, there were board liaisons, I'm not sure how to
Mhm.
pronounce that, liaisons to every committee, which kind of was not as active with that this year, I think. So note to us that we should do that as well.
Okay, cool.
Andrew, can you resume the your update?
Yes. Absolutely. So the project summit is planned. The project audit, which is to talking about that premium / freemium / commercial / non-commercial. Is it really an OWASP project? It kicked off on the 26th of October. And essentially that's coming up in 2 days. Harold, when do you envisage that audit being close to be complete? Will it be done before November or December?
Given the number of projects we have and the amount of participation, we're only going to have maybe 6 people going through this, but if we get it done by September, it might be a surprise. So September or December or January.
Okay. No worries.
Sorry, can we go back to the previous slide? Harold, as you're doing this, maybe do you mind taking some notes on like how can we, because I think the first time we do this is going to be the most effort intensive, but I think this is something we want to regularly do. And what are those things that would make this easier for you for the next time to do it? Because there might be things we want to do in policy or process for identifying projects that makes the output of this process you're going through to be recursive, like essentially it outputs for itself as time moves on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the project committee and I are both working on how much of this we can actually automate. In fact, the report that's mentioned here was generated through automation. So it's something that we're going to look at putting on the project page and just being able to do this a lot more smoothly in the future.
Thanks.
Am I the
Sorry,
only one who
Andrew.
has problems to understand that? I couldn't understand what was said.
Martin, it was a little choppy, but basically Harold said that they're working with a project committee and to understand what those requirements are, and that will be one of the outputs of it.
Yep.
Harold, did I capture that properly?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. No worries. The last part about the projects is we are working with flagship projects. If anyone has a flagship project that's near and dear to their heart and they haven't organized to get into the fundraising for Giving Tuesday, please give them a kick and encourage them very strongly to figure out what would be a package that would look like to work on for say 2 to 4 weeks. How much would it cost to get that done? Assuming they take a sabbatical or something similar to get it done. And we would like to fundraise for them. So that's an element that is actually underway at the moment. Okay, grants. We are awaiting payments for some. I actually did have an agreement with Google in my email. I need to go and have a look at what that is. But effectively, these are the grants that are currently outstanding. Glenn, have you signed the NIA Christian Fellini paperwork?
I did have contact with him and also got some feedback from the board. I actually thought I only needed to approve the ticket in our system, but I also need to sign a document, if I'm correct now.
I think so. I'll follow that up with you afterwards.
Okay. I wasn't aware that I also need to sign a document. I just gave approval and clarified the thing with him, so it all seems okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's just that it's 24,000, which is above my signing authority. Obviously, the signing authority was initially thought about in terms of expenses only, but the board wishes to do in both directions.
Mhm.
Okay. And events.
By the way,
Oops.
sorry, one question about the grant. So actually, how do we let people engage, with these grants? Because in our case, we're not going to do the work ourselves. We're going to ask the community actually to help and be able to use a part of this.
Mhm.
Is it through creating themselves a ticket? Is it us doing it? Can only the OWASP member doing it? Is the payment through PayPal or bank or?
Our preference is for bank payments. Our fees are less. We can do PayPal if there's no other alternatives. It's just we've lost access to PayPal for months on end. They're a very difficult organization to work with when you've lost access to your account. They make ING look like a saint.
Okay.
The reality is that we would prefer it if it was banked.
All right, and it is then us needing to do it, or is it actually themselves? Because I think some actually are maybe not even part of the OWASP as a member. Is that an issue?
I think as long as the project leaders say that someone is working on it and that person contacts us through a Jira ticket, I think that'll be fine.
All right. Then one last question. Where and who is doing the verification if we're not working with sanctioned countries?
From time to time, I and Dawn do the sanctioned countries and Lisa does it for chapters. We haven't done it recently. The main one would be just simply keeping on top of what's happening with the EU sanctions upon certain countries relating to the current issue in Ukraine.
Okay.
I think we already had stopped Russia and Belarus, but I'm not too sure if there's any other countries. We'll have to review that. I'll put that on my list of things to do.
Yeah, but there's no automatic system or something that checks if we do make payments.
It's really down to our payment processor. So Stripe and whatnot won't process payments to those countries now. So it's just impossible for us, even if we try to put through.
Okay. And from a, accountability and legal point of view, is that an issue or?
From time to time, we need to review it. The problem is that the US one is they target individuals as well as organizations as well as countries. So targeted sanctions can be rather difficult to work out. You basically have to type in the name of the person you're looking at and see whether or not anything comes back.
All right, check.
Yeah.
And all right. Thanks for the clarification.
No worries. Getting onto events.
Sorry, Andrew. I had hand raised and I think Ruben as well.
Okay, go for it.
So a couple of things about the, if you can go back to the other grants. So we're having a few more of these than we've had in the past. So it's already like several times more than we've had. And we know that grants policy it needs to be reworked completely. As you're going through a few more of these now, 2, 4, 5 now, Andrew and Glenn, do you have any insights, any thoughts on what should be changed for that policy from the perspective, from perspective of governance and operational issues around all that and control?
Well, I think it's good that you mention it because I actually tried in the previous board meeting to actually try something. But like was discussed in the previous board meeting that we're actually setting this whole grant process up using a system and another system that we're crafting, developing, acquiring together with, I think her name was Teresa, right, Andrew?
Yeah, so Teresa is working with us on getting all of the materials together that we would give to donors. She has worked with a number of platforms in the past. I will ask her at our next meeting, which is next Tuesday, what platforms she would suggest. My biggest concern is that we need a platform that's sort of halfway between Upwork. Harold, what was that platform that we used that was called Community something or another?
If you just hadn't asked me that, I would have been able to tell you.
Mm. It was essentially a way of actually getting project leaders to get things funded through the platform, so we could monitor multiple things. So if we had 100 of these things, we could then have a platform. With 5, Jira is probably the right tool. With 100, it's almost certainly the wrong tool.
I think it's not just the number of grants though, Andrew, right? It's also the amount, the size of the grant
Mhm.
when it comes to governance and as well as taking it out. So for example, as Glenn said, with SKF, the project leaders are farming this out to the community. Some of the other ones, the project leaders are taking this and doing this. The process there would be different, but the policy has to be consistent.
Yep. So I just remember the name of the platform. It's called Open Collective. We did evaluate it, but we didn't have enough work to really justify keeping the platform. So if people are interested, it is called Open Collective. We had a look at this. This is a way for providing, donations, mini grants, reimburse volunteers, that sort of thing. So if you're interested, have a look at this particular tool. If the board feels that this is worthwhile, we do need to actually work out how much it's going to cost us, but it's got to be something that fits in with the rest of what we're doing.
All right. So we're not. I don't think we're going to get to that policy anytime soon. But Andrew and Glenn, anybody else that's involved with the grants, please start thinking about what lessons you've learned from these grants and what needs to be changed. On the side of the Google grant, I have some changes that need to be done to the policy as well. Just thoughts about what needs to be done in the future for the next 5 or 20.
One of the things I would probably suggest is just to keep in mind we are a staff of 6, and if there is going to be a revision of the policy, we should do so in combination with the platform that's mostly self-service, so that essentially it is scalable. I would hate for us to be, saying, yes, we'll take 15% as overhead and it costs us more than 15% to actually run a project. Yes, that then we're then using events and membership and corporate supporters to fund projects again, which is an area that I was sort of hoping to get away from. But yes, lessons learned. Good idea.
Jubin, you had your hand raised before?
Yeah, I'll make it really quick. When we do revisit grant policy, Andrew, I know we had the discussion about your signing authority for accepting grants, and I know there was discussion around like how much commitment we're putting on OWASP with regards to that. So can we also discuss that? Because I do think like I don't think we should be waiting on approval for you to accept grants. The problem is like how much authority we're putting there. So when we have that discussion, can that be one of the bigger topics that we discuss? I do think the ED should have the privilege of accepting grants higher than 20K. It should be different than your spending authority. But I do see the other side of the argument where it does put risk and burden on the foundation. So there needs to be like a litmus test of it's not just a dollar amount, but what's being asked.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been looking at is the signing authority. So github.com OWASP www policy, you'll see a pull request for the signature. And the change that I sort of need is for staff members to have the authorities they need to be able to do their job without having to ask me for a signature on everything. For example, Kelly signs up corporate supporters all the time, anywhere from $800 to $25,000. It should be possible for Kelly to sign for those. It's a very low risk environment. So what I'd like to do is for the board to go through and have a look at this particular pull request. And I think that's exactly what you're asking for, Jibin. I'm going to put it into chat.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's the pull request that I've done for signing for staff, but it sounds like you've got some additional elements there. You can, it's just simple bullet points for me, including for investments.
I can pull against your pull just for the sake of expediency.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Shall we go on to events? Because we're starting to run out of time.
Please.
Okay, so here we have, we've now finished the career fair, the AppSec Virtual Europe, the AppSec Virtual Asia Pac. You've heard about the results. The actuals will be less than this. So once we've actually closed out, probably October, we'll know the actuals. So that's next month. Now we've got AppSec San Francisco. For that, I'm going to hand over to Kelly. Kelly, how are we going in terms of registrations? And can you just go through the attendees, the trainees, and the sponsors? And you say it's on track, but just let the board know where we're at the moment.
Yeah, hi guys. Registration, these numbers were updated this morning. So we're low on registration numbers. So if you guys could help promote it, we've got another social media day planned for this Thursday. Yeah, sorry. I'm a little, I don't feel good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ellie, do you want me to talk?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So as Kelly mentioned, Global AppSec San Francisco, currently we have 367 attendees. That count does include the 65 trainees that we have. So, and most people are staying through. If they're doing a training, they're also staying for the event. I believe Kelly has one more sponsorship spot. Am I right, Kelly?
Yeah, one diamond company is back there. So there is one more diamond sponsorship.
Yeah. And then we, of course, have unlimited event sponsorships as well. Avi, thank you for your help with your food and beverage. We're currently working on that and everything is getting finalized. Our schedule is up to date with the speakers online as well. Does anybody have any questions pertaining to the San Francisco conference?
I do. Lauren, we made the change for requiring masks at this conference. Did we see a change or drop off in attendees as a result of that?
No, we didn't. And we even have it on the registration that people acknowledge that this is a fully masked event, and everybody has checked the box acknowledging it. So hopefully we will not have any issues. But please know that for food and beverage, when that is in the exhibit hall and or foyer, obviously people are going to be removing their masks. So if you are very concerned, please let me know ahead of time and I can see if I can work something out with the hotel.
No, I mean, I think that's reasonable, right? I think it's people need to eat and drink water and
yes, I agree.
I don't think, for the record, I don't think it's reasonable. I just don't see any other option.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, human anatomy won't evolve by the time that. Okay, yeah. Fun fact: my family just tested positive for the second time in 2 months, so
Oh,
Man,
gosh.
sorry to hear that.
it's a good season.
I just got another shot, so
I got my latest booster about 3 weeks ago, and I just had a sore arm. So I think that's definitely worthwhile getting updated before you visit San Francisco.
I have
Okay.
another comment here before
Yep.
you move on. Andrew. Were you going to talk about this, or are you going to move on?
I was going to move on.
Okay, so before that, the numbers for this conference look really good, except for the attendance, right? That's our big thing. And the big issue is that it's not sustainable. Like if this is what happens at the next conference, we're not going to be this profitable, get this many sponsors. In the past, some conferences have been a bit more free with scholarships, whether they're diversity scholarships or student scholarships or various ways of kind of, spiking the attendance a little bit more at the expense of additional profitability. thoughts from fellow members?
And so yes, Avi, and we discussed a $20,000 marketing budget, I thought,
Mhm.
or a 20,000 addition marketing budget. Has that been consumed?
It's in its way of being consumed. It is currently spent $2,369. And we can start upping it, but you can see that the campaign has been going downhill very, very quickly. We've had 760 clicks, but over 100,000 impressions. So if we go to demographics and just have a quick look, we're starting to get the people who are actually our software engineers, security professionals, senior security software engineers. This is the sort of people that we're interested in actually having at our conferences. And so we are hitting the right people on LinkedIn, but the spend isn't very high. I'm going to see whether or not I can up that. There was a $25,000 marketing built into the actual budget for AppSec San Francisco. With 2 weeks to go, we can try to improve this and get it to spend more.
And maybe diversify, Andrew. Maybe we target Twitter, Facebook, other social media platforms, given the time.
Yep, we'll put it on Twitter. Our demographics for Facebook, for the Facebook group we have, is for India. And just with the logistics of getting a visa to come to America, it's too difficult to get those folks who even are interested in coming to come. It's frustrating as hell because,
Americans don't use Facebook anymore?
well, I personally don't, but the vast majority of the folks, if you look at the demographics of our Facebook page and our Facebook group, it's like 85% from India and Pakistan.
So the other comment I would say on top of what Jumna said, I think we need to learn from this going forward and understand how to do a lot better on this far in advance. Maybe it's a question of the messaging. Maybe it's a question of graphics. I don't know what that is. I do know that there are marketing firms that specialize in tailoring exactly this. So I think it's worth in the future having somebody that is focused exactly on this, marketing and social networks.
I mean, Avi, we have 25,000, well, 22,000 change left. Is there time to onboard said marketing firm for like half that money to see if it'll make an impact in the 2 weeks to go? I mean, that's an Andrew decision. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I said in the future, not because of the cost, but because I assume that it's not long enough for them to get set up. But maybe it is. Like I always say, I know nothing about marketing.
Yep.
Worth a question to ask them.
Yep.
Can they be effective given 2 weeks?
Well, as a good marketing company, I would say, of course, give me your money.
Oh, I mean, we would put it in the SAL, right? That here are the metrics requirements for payment.
Okay.
Listen, you always get links, IDs, whatever, tracker links, you know exactly where they came from. Good marketing companies should be able to provide those metrics.
So the only one that I want to do, I will take those on board. We'll get some Twitter advertising up. AppSec Cali, I got an email yesterday from the organizers. They're not going to be running one in 2023. Our events policy says that after 2 years of not running an event, it is up to the foundation to find alternative leadership. At this point, we actually have reached out to Fiona in San Diego if she's interested in hosting. It is a Californian event. It should be run by the Californian chapters. The Los Angeles chapter, it's obviously too late to run it in January next year, so they've said no. They're going to try and catch up with us or with me in San Francisco to have a chat. I don't know what that actually means, but fundamentally, AppSec Cali was one of our best regional events, and I think it had some special magic, but maybe there is time for new leadership to come in and actually put some firm plans down for 2024. It's hard to say. I mean, without volunteers wanting to organize it, it's not going to happen. I think, you know, Martin and Avi, you've both organized, you know, larger events, and it's a lot of work to do just asking someone to, like, you know, voluntold them you're organizing AppSec Cali. It doesn't work.
No, and it's not a small event, right? It's a well-known big event. So it's not something you just run like, if I may say, Benelux days. We can do it in several months. But the AppSec Cali is a different ball game and different expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Snowfrog, they are meeting regularly. I'm seeing that. I want to basically postpone any more comments about events. Is there anything here that you are interested in that you want followed up? Because I do, it's 11:04 and we want to get on to the next topic of conversation.
Andrew, I would like a quick update on not the regional events, but the global events, plans for the global events for 23 and later.
Okay, so just really quickly, AppSec Dublin is underway. We've been, we do need to find an alternative board member. I think Avi, you've stepped up where Martin had to step down. That would then lead into the conversation about the keynotes. Because we invite them, I'd really like to see a diversity of views and, you know, folks that we don't normally hear from. It'd be really good to have new and interesting keynote speakers, not necessarily some of the folks that we've had in the past who are, you know, without a doubt, great speakers, but I'd like to see a bit more diversity. We are planning and we are working on AppSec DC at the same place we had it in 2019. It's just simpler for us to organize that. It's a very short time for us to organize an event in less than a year. We've not really been focused on having an event like that. So we need to be able to sign a hotel contract really soon so that we can actually help Shelby with the planning for the 2023 budget.
Oh, Andrew, if you don't mind, I can kind of touch on the contracts because Kelly and I have really been working on that. So for Dublin, we have selected our host hotels. We're just waiting on the contracts to come through so we can review them and make sure that they are in line. And then once those contracts are signed, we'll be adding them to the Dublin website. One thing that Kelly and I thought would be very beneficial would be a multi-year hotel contract. So while we're looking at the Hyatt in DC for 2023, we're also looking at San Francisco Hyatt again for 2024, then 2025 back at DC, et cetera, through 2026, just to see if we can work on a multi-year multi-property package. So that way we can secure the best deal for OWASP. So that I just wanted to put that out there so you guys know that it is being worked on.
Yeah. For 2024 Europe, we do need to have some local people interested in helping organize it, just for the logistics point of view alone. My preference would be Amsterdam or Paris or Munich. Easy to get to from the United States. Martin?
I had to find the unmute button. Sorry, I'm tired now to talk, but that's something a frustration of mine that we talked about, I think, every time we talk about conferences. In the past, it really helped to get a local team in Europe to do it. And now again, I see that you are taking over. So I would like to see it there and there. So I'm frustrated with that for several reasons. One is the Paris chapter, it's quite small, not that active. So what do you want to achieve? But we have to redefine what is the goal of this. Do you want to re-initiate some area we want to go? Or do we want to have it there as an active chapter?
I think it has to be an active chapter. But
yeah, and that's something we have to discuss separately. I think it's not something for the open board meeting. The call for venues that worked in Europe. We had people from all over Europe work together, make it happen. So Paris, so just shouting some nice cities out there, it's not helping. So I think that's something we should definitely have something in the in-person meeting in November to come with a strategy.
Okay.
So we had to get rid of it. It's much as I can say right now.
Okay, that's fine. That's what the meetings are for. Okay, I'd like to hand the floor back to Avi so we can get back onto the next topic. Is there any other questions the board has for me?
All right, if there are no other questions for Andrew, we'll.
Sorry, it took a second to get off mute. Martin, it seems like you have an idea in your head of what would make for successful events. Can we please have one meeting before the end of the year where we get those thoughts on paper and send it? I'm not on the board next year, but I am interested in your thoughts there, and I would like to make that like a parting gift of just do one last change to help with it feels like you have the idea in your head. It's just we're not able to get it on paper.
We had to put it on paper several times, but I said to Andrew, when I leave the board, that's because also we will continue. I will be more involved in events, but yeah, let's have a meeting. But currently I cannot meet a lot, so sorry for that.
Just if I mean, we don't even have to meet. If you want to like tell the story and describe it in a Word doc, we can, if you can just put your thoughts on paper, we can run with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Or interpretive dance. Our next topic is a discussion on board funding priorities. Glenn?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to actually discuss the funding priorities for the upcoming year budget. I know we have created a list over here. A couple of the things I actually put on myself. One of the first things that I want to discuss is the outreach funding for conference and events. So it's good that Shelby is also here. The training and education materials for flagship projects, marketing program, basically what we're going to look at for our funding priorities for next year. We already asked, to think about it. We put something on paper that we think we should discuss and see how to prioritize those things. So I'm really hoping actually in this meeting we can get a bit of steering and guidance from the rest of the board on what we think there should be our priorities and how much we should reserve for the 2023 budget. So saying that, I think it's also important to actually look at the current, well, we had the financial narrative as well, right? But in terms of these topics, I know some of the board members maybe didn't have the chance to put anything on it. Are we missing things that we need to discuss?
Would it make sense to go through the list and say 3 words about each one?
Yeah, but
Or are they all clear to everybody?
I would
Almost.
ask, membership is, like corporate membership and membership is not mentioned here, and yet it might be a priority.
All right, Martin?
hey, you're talking about the discussion on the board funding priorities, right? No. So this is a discussion on the board funding priorities
Correct,
for the budget for 23.
correct.
And but I think I think in general OWASP should move the financial year, because now we have the board and we have at least 2 board members that will not sit here the next year. We'll discuss the budget for next year. So maybe that's an idea when I look to Shelby and Andrew to move our financial year, and you can do that as an organization, to not meet the calendar year, so that the board that is responsible for the budget actually can do the budget. Because now we're discussing budget, we have not had any strategic in-person meeting yet. And so I think that's an awkward moment.
Yes, but what is even more awkward is that we still didn't have any discussion about it. So waiting till the last moment to then do it, that also doesn't feel right. So I'm not saying it's going to be set in stone, actually, what we're going to discuss here, but just to see in which way the wind is blowing for all of the, at least current members here, the board members that are sitting here. But I agree with you as well, Martin, of course.
I think that issue would be a good topic for our in-person discussion with some of the new folks as well. I'm saying the topic of shifting the financial year to get a perspective of those that are not in.
Mhm.
And I don't think we need to decide these priorities right now. Glenn, I don't think that was your intention. But
No,
more
indeed. It was
to have
just
directions and initiatives.
exactly correct.
So just really briefly, previous boards have taken time to approve a budget, which has meant that we haven't spent any money on the first 3 to 4 months of the year. I think probably worthwhile for Shelby to do a little bit of research. The United States government does sort of expect us to return our returns at a certain point. So there might be some limitations there, but we have had budgets approved earlier in the year and later in the year. But we are having some turnover of the board this year, and it might be worthwhile to think about that as we go through and just get those priorities.
And Andrew, if not, we'll know the elected of the new board will look like very soon here. So once we know that, maybe we can just include them in the meeting come November or December to make that decision. Maybe we can just push this a little bit back.
If everyone agrees, I will concur with that. I think we should preserve this list, maybe even go through it just, 6 seconds on each one for the purpose of generating additional ideas, brainstorming what else should be on this list for when we come to that conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good for me. So yeah, the outreach funding for conference and events. Of course, there we need to have a look in how much we actually are going to put in there, because as we just discussed, I think there we could do way better. Like Ivy suggested, maybe have a special marketing company who can help us and target the right people. The training and education materials for flagship projects. That is actually one of the things that I put on the list. I would love to see more material that we actually can consume from, well, the security knowledge framework point of view. As we're all busy there creating sort of courses based on all the material that we have in OWASP. Also, I think it would benefit really a lot of the flagship projects to have more clear and education training material for their own projects to, well, use, share, and make the projects more visible. Before I continue, Martin?
Yeah, I think for the training education materials for flagships, what I always tried, but I failed, is the look and feel of the project. So we have the one website where the project look consistent, but we all know they're not. Definitely now with every project, as SKF has its own domain. So I think alignment over the projects for look and feel and experience will also be something that could be on the list now, next to training, education. That has the, I don't know how you call it, the look and feel, the
Branding,
alignment of the project or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, and I would actually wanted to classify it into the next item, the marketing program / the branding, look and feel of all the projects.
It's not the marketing, it's the content, right? Alignment.
Yeah, but to be honest, I see some of the great flagship projects, they don't even have a logo. I mean, okay.
You don't need to have a logo as a project. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, indeed. So that's something definitely that we can also take into that one. The next topic, the marketing program for OWASP projects. Again, I think, in combination with the training and education materials for the flagship projects, at least to start with, also a dedicated marketing / program for those OWASP projects could be very beneficial. Like I mentioned in the other meetings with the guys, I'm also running a flagship project, except for Martin, who's doing promotion. Nobody ever from the foundation actually helped us, I would say, in doing a tweet or a promotion in that. So I think there we are really lacking, and we should really help the projects to actually do that. Some are a bit better than others in doing this, and that is good. But we as a foundation, we should really support them, and we should make budget available to actually help them and shine with their awesome projects that they do for OWASP. Then the next item, the OWASP staff. We also mentioned that in a couple of the previous board meetings that we would extend the list of the staff members. Please remind me, there was a specific role that we wanted to see if there would be budget available to hire a new staff member. It was for the role.
It was for a communications/marketing person, so that they would actually start answering our like DMs and things like that at the OWASP and things like that, but also someone who can actually lead our marketing for projects, membership, corporate membership, and obviously events.
Andrew, I'm sorry, I thought it was for another community manager person.
Well, that's what part of the job would be, is to answer the community. So we get lots of queries on at OWASP, at Twitter, Facebook, and other places like LinkedIn. And at the moment, no one's responding to those. And so people may just be giving up, we don't know. But yeah, in terms of the community manager, what sort of other duties were you looking at? Because
community building, it goes a lot more than just responding to messages, right? It's strategic building, and there's a lot more than I know about. Let's put it that way.
We used to have a community manager.
Tiffany.
Yeah. So, Martin?
Yeah, community manager, I said before, that's something and I mentioned it many times, it's something we lack and we need. There's no doubt.
And to be honest, I would doubt that we would find a great a candidate that would be great in both of those roles, because they're very different roles in my mind. And to be clear, these are not roles that I'm familiar with, but the little that I know are they're very different.
Yeah.
What's the current blocker for us getting a community manager today?
There's no allocated budget for it because we were projecting a $267,000 profit. Sorry, $267 profit for the year. So we didn't have any budget for it. So it would be in a 2023 hire. We can start the hiring process now with the objective of actually getting it in as soon as the budget's actually approved.
Right, and we were orders of magnitudes off, right? We had a very good year. How can we, so it's not about just this coming year, but and the year we had, but it's about the year after that, because we can't just like people depend on us, right? When we hire people, we need to make sure we're properly funded for them. How do we put some money, and maybe there's a conversation with Shelby and Andrew and the treasurer later, but how do we put money in reserve so that we can guarantee the income for the community manager for the next X number of years, especially since it's a new role that's being added?
Exactly. Yeah, good question. So I think we should discuss that as well and take it into the budget draft and the costs for indeed the following years, right? It's not only looking at next year, but you're right.
Yeah. The fully loaded cost of our appointments, by the way, is 35% on top of the salary that's advertised. So we do need to be just a little bit like, you're not just say picking a number and that's the number that it costs the organization. It's that number plus 35%. So it's important to make sure that we actually do keep sufficient headroom. We will know our full profitability at the end of the year in January or through March, if you're concerned about that sort of stability. Martin?
It's depending if you hire them or if you contract them, right?
We've had limited success with contracting, but that could just simply because we weren't vetting the contractors very well.
Well, I think it depends. Well, something like marketing might make sense to take a marketing agency instead of having a full-time marketing person. Perhaps, again, I'm speaking with completely no knowledge on the topic of how to run a marketing campaign. But my point is that there are options depending on how we structure it.
Martin?
Sorry, I was forgetting to lower my hand.
Okay, lower your hand then. Yeah, and to be honest, when we talk about a community manager, it's also not somebody we can just hire, right? I mean, it has to be somebody with OWASP DNA that is also known in OWASP and people respect dearly. I mean, that is also the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody that knows how to build communities, right? It's not just, it's one of the roles that are almost as hard to fill as an application security architect.
Correct.
Glenn, if you'd like, I'll pick up the rest of the list because I added
Yeah,
them.
please. Ah, that makes more sense. Thanks.
You were confused where these come from. Okay, conference growth. I've actually been saying this for several years before COVID even. The way we run our conferences is that unhappy valley. They're at the size where they're a lot of effort and not quite as profitable as they can be. They're rather small, but not small enough to be easy, but not large enough to be crazy profitable. So if we were running this conference as with like 8,000 attendees, which should be possible, it would be a lot more profitable, a lot a more successful conference. It's not growing naturally by itself. I think we need to invest in growing. I'm not saying 8,000 people needs to be the target, but I think we need to invest into ramping these conferences up to something at the next level, right? 500 people, that's a large meetup or a mid-size B-sides, right? So we need to invest in growing that to the point where they're both sustainable and large enough to be an event outside of OWASP. Investing in diversity, there's plenty of things that we can do and should do. I reached out to Zoe as well from the diversity committee for some additional ideas. She's working on that. She'll discuss that and get back to us, but there are definitely additional things that we can be doing. I don't mean like the ambassadors, but I mean far beyond that. One example of that is the scholarships, a scholarship fund to attend conferences, trainings, and so forth. It might be something like a travel fund for speakers who are less represented that and otherwise can't make it to the conferences. It's something that OWASP traditionally has not done, but there have been occasionally events that have done it and has had really good impact as well. These are definitely areas that I believe that we should discuss specifics about how to invest more in. Anybody have anything to add or additional questions on the board funding priorities? Right. So with that said, we'll take these topics and reserve them for the next conversation, I guess, in person, together with the incoming board, and hopefully brainstorm additional ideas on that going forward.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, Andrew, Shelby, we need to already make an overview what is actually possible, what the budget might look like, where we actually have the capabilities to spread it over these different topics, possibly.
Yeah.
So we are well prepared to actually do that meeting in person then.
Yeah. So Shelby, we really needed that draft budget that we talked about before in time for the meeting in San Francisco.
Yes, I'm working on getting the draft together, and I have notes for all the topics we discussed today. So I'll just leave spaces for it in the budget, and then when we confirm, where we're going to land, I'll add those in as well.
I assume there would be a difference in impact between things that need to have a running commitment, such as staff, versus a one-time lump sum that will dedicate into a fund, and when fund runs out, that's fine, like scholarships, for example. So seeing how that impacts the budget would be very interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If there are no other comments on this topic, we can move on to discussion on Linux Foundation and OpenSSF collaboration. Glenn?
Yeah, as you know, I'm also busy and active in the OpenSSF open source for secure software developers. He also recently started a software improvement group for education and training. And what I noticed, and I also put this, this observing thing out there as well in the group, that we actually, in some of the cases, we're actually really trying to reinvent the wheel. not in a bad way. We as the OpenSSF community and as OWASP, we actually want to achieve same type of things. We have a lot of overlap in a lot of things, like I mentioned here, outreach projects, training and education. And it felt really, bad actually working in these different silos. And I know we're also like a partnership and a member of the OpenSSF Foundation. And also a couple of other members from OWASP are, taking part in these type of groups as well. And we were just wondering out loud, like, hey, why are we working in silos? Is there a reason for that? Can there be closer collaboration in certain areas? And I just wanted to, well, again, also put it out here to see what our thoughts of is, and also maybe a bit of a knowledge gap on my side. I don't actually know what it means that it is a partner, for example, with the OpenSF organization. So maybe that is my first question. What does it actually mean? And how will that impact, for example, our collaboration on certain overlapping areas?
Oh, I'm sorry again. Would you mind if I reverse your question back to you and ask you what your specific goals are from this? Other than it's nice to play with others.
Well, it's nice to play with others, but as we, just for an example, we also have a training and education committee, right? They're working on, I don't know, like 2-3 years now on this whole education and training. And I've been to a couple of the meetings, but there's no real work out yet, like a deliverable. And again, I see at the OpenSSF site, a bit similar, but they make more speed, more movement. And also as they have grant processes and actually money that is available there, plus the fact that we are doing and trying to achieve the same goal, it makes for me totally sense to work on this together. Because there I see, if we could bring, for example, the training and education part and the people that are here at OWASP busy with it, joining that team or that talks and discussions that we have over there, I think we would move for both the organizations way faster to actually delivering what we want to do, making software more secure. So that was a bit my pain point actually, that I see both sides are struggling. And I think if it would be a joint effort where we also have great people, plus they also have great people, and well, because it's the OpenSSF Foundation, they also have budget for it. Why can't we collaborate, for example, to deliver something great to the open source community? For me, it's just about delivery, making sure we improve and go further, right, in helping open source and software developers, right, and in the AppSec space. And so far, I see, similar goals, similar type of struggles, and I think it should be better to maybe in some areas where it could be really interesting and beneficial to actually, as an OWASP organization, work more closely together with them. Martin.
Yeah. In the beginning, it was Sheriff who was our liaison with OWASP. I thought Andrew took that over, right?
Yes, that is correct. I'm the associate board member at OpenSSF. That is given once a year. We may or may not be the associate board member as of November. They've got their annual board meeting on November 11. I will be attending virtually. I don't think there's much pressure to get rid of us. However, at the same time, it's not guaranteed. I would like to make sure that we're actually, regardless of whether or not we're on their board, that we have good relations with OpenSSF. There is a lot of synergy in our mission, and they have a lot of funding. And so I'm quite supportive of what Glenn's suggesting here without losing our identity.
Yeah, I think the last one is really important without losing our identity. I think we got off on the wrong foot in the beginning. when the communication was quite hostile towards us, but I think still we were together. The other side is we still have to, and it's unfortunate that Grant is not joining us tonight, because we also have to open the non-profit cyber alliance where we are partner. Have to also see what's going there. I hope that Grant, and I hope that Grant will update us soon about ongoings there.
I'm curious, is this not just a question of setting up a specific grant with a specific set of deliverables and getting a grant from OpenSSF for this? Or are we talking far beyond that?
It's more than that. It's to be actually heard in different areas. Like you see that Josh Corman had this very good thing when he did for the I'm the Cavalry. So you need to be present. You have to need to know whom to talk to. For the grants, you need not just come, hey, sponsor our conference, but you continuously be in contact with the likes Google and Microsoft and those. It's just that you need somebody who has industry knowledge and political abilities to network and go around, get around there in those areas.
So Glenn, how would you like to progress this other than the discussion?
Well, again, what I want to do is actually also talk to, for example, Spyros, because he's also in the outreach committee, right? I want to have a look at, well, also Spyros was actually part of the software, open source software security development best practices in the same one that I'm also in for the CRE project. So again, there we have, you know, already a couple of OWASP projects and members working together and seeking collaboration. For the training and education, I think I will just ask the committee as well to join a couple of the OpenSSF sessions about this, the software improvement stream that they started for training and education. Yeah, and just actually see if indeed those projects and people want to work together. But I just wanted to, you know, have a, yeah, also an echo chamber here to see, you know, what is actually our position. Do we endorse this? Do we not? I mean, yeah, just to get a bit more clarity on working together in some of the aspects and areas, right?
Just my 5 cents, you might get more clarity if this was an executive session, because this is obviously a public broadcast. So it might be something to talk about at the face-to-face meeting in November.
Yeah, I definitely, we can go more in depth, but you know, I get your point of view, but also I want to have it open and transparent. I mean, if the board thinks this is not a good idea, then we should also voice that in a public meeting. I mean, I don't see really the issue about that, actually.
Glenn, I think so. It's not just about not being transparent. It's some of us might be missing context, and it's difficult to have that conversation and gaining that context on a public platform like this. So how about we take this to an executive session, discuss it, but we can have the final discussion around this on a call like this.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, in the meantime, you know, the teams that are already working on it together, working with OpenSSF, I think they will just continue doing so, including myself with the SKF project. But let's indeed go more in depth about in the executive one and see what else.
Yeah, I would also encourage the board to do the due diligence that that may arise out of that executive session with OpenSSF and be really transparent with them. They've been very nice to me. Honestly, I've got a good working relationship with Brian Belnadov. Their heart's in the right place and they're doing some really impactful work. And I would be very supportive of this. It's just at the end of the day, again, it's about our identity.
Grant, are you looking just for additional brainstorming at the next session, or do you want to put together like a specific proposal that might be expanded in the discussion?
That's a good question. I need to think about it.
To be honest, it seems like you know the situation a lot better than most of us on the board.
Well,
so I think
you
best
know,
positioned to do that.
there's not really that much to actually elaborate on. You know, it's just indeed like Andrew says. Also myself, I you know, I'm part of it for almost 2.5 years now. When they even before the OpenSSF was called OpenSSF, right? And again, why did we, you know, went to those meetings and have all those discussions and good insights is again, because they have the same mission, right? Making software more secure. And for me, I think that's, yeah, good relationships, good working ethics. You know, they're very good in certain things that we lack in terms of organization. So I think it's also sort of a, you know, a privilege to run in those meetings and actually see some of the things we actually also should do or can do, right? To make things more efficient, to get things delivered. But yeah, so that is all my honest feedback that I have. Nothing more than that. It's just, it's a good working collaboration. I see we want to do the same things. And yeah, for the 3 topics that I just put here, I see for both sides a huge beneficial and mutual, you know, way forward to actually help both our mission statements. So that's why I just wanted to, yeah, like I said, use it as an echo chamber. Like some of the members said, we started probably on the wrong foot. I didn't notice anything of that. I actually think it's great to work with them. So I just wanted to point out, hey, there might be other projects as well that have overlap where you can do things together. Yeah, and have more feedback and more people involved, right? More volunteers to also help your own projects move forward and become more awesome and better. So that's why I'm putting it out here, just to, yeah. And of course, we can go in a more executive discussion about it, but yeah, there's nothing more than that actually to go more into depth. It's just, hey, I see we're working in silos. Why are we doing that? Because it would be better in some areas to combine forces and have impact.
Just to put it out there, the OpenSSF has a project called Alpha Omega, and some of the things that they are working upon are right up our alley, and we should probably put in where we see a piece of work package that they want done, and we shop that around our volunteers to see if they're interested in working on the Alpha Omega project. They're doing interesting things like, you know, trying to secure the top 1,000 open source projects. That's something that we should be doing. And if there's the funding available and our community is interested in helping and they can get that funding, we should be doing that sort of outreach. So these are sorts of the things that are relatively low friction that we should probably be trying to do.
All right. Thank you all for the input. Any further comments on this? All right. So we can move on. Any additional business to add? Any new topics before we adjourn? I will say that there's been some requests to do a short executive session. Should be no more than 10 minutes right after we adjourn. So that would be just the board and Andrew. Please stay to join us.
I just wanted to say about the adjournment. The adjournment is incorrect. The next board meeting is the public board meeting. So Lauren, when is the public board meeting scheduled?
I would need to go and
16th
at 7 p.m. in San Francisco time.
Okay, that's then. And then essentially we do need 7 days notice to say whether or not we're cancelling the 22nd virtual public meeting. It is the week of Thanksgiving, so it's up to you guys whether or not you want to run that as a standard meeting as well.
Indeed. All right, I move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Martin. And we are adjourned. Board members and Andrew, please stay on. Thank you, everybody else for joining us. We'll see you in person in a few weeks.
Thank you.
I'm just going to stop the share.
Yes, please.